evening, folks. This is Off the Bounce from Loudmouth Sports Talk and Loudmouth Sports Group. Once again, I am Damien. That is Isaiah, and right below us we have Mr. and Mrs. Benton of Bent Force Basketball. Um, Mr. Benton has been known. He's a Pittsburgh native, and he's done quite a lot to represent the city of Pittsburgh. He is former winner of the Francis Pomeroy Naismith Award. He's also gotten records here and there through the is it the North Atlantic Division?
North Atlantic Conference, yeah.
Yeah, North Atlantic Conference. He's also got scoring records in Vermont University, if I do remember correctly.
Yep.
And his beautiful wife right next to him. I don't want to say your name wrong. Is it Daynia?
Daynia.
She's also a two-time Coach of the Year award. She's been a D1 college basketball coach after concluding her own playing career at Georgetown. Like I said, they've both done wonderful things to represent their family where they're from. So we've got them on, luckily enough for us. Thank you again for you guys joining us. And I know Isaiah's got some questions. You guys
I was gonna say, definitely thank you for you guys to have the honor. What's it called? I'll definitely just start off. The one thing I kind of thought of was what made you guys start coaching? What was kind of that thing that kind of started off like during your playing careers that made you guys want to like end it and become coaches whenever after your coaching careers?
Well, the one thing for me, obviously I played at the University of Vermont, and once I finished playing, I played in the CBA for a year. Then I played overseas. I played in Israel, Carmel, Israel for a year. Then I played in Punta Fiel in Venezuela for a year. And as you know, the technology wasn't the same back then as it is now. So it was kind of tough as far as, when you're close to your family and not being able to communicate. You talk on the phone for 5 minutes and the bill's like $100 because you're talking so far. I just thought there was a better way to still be home with the family and still do something that I love to do. And then that's when I got into college basketball right away as a coach. And I started on the men's side. I was on the men's side for the first 5 years of my coaching career. Then I transitioned over to the women's side. 5 years later, I became the head coach at La Roche University, and I was the head coach there for 8 years. So, and then it went on from there. But that's how I initially got into coaching basketball, and I've been doing it ever since. 22 years now.
Now, for me, after I graduated Georgetown, and I'm going to date myself a little bit, this was 1995, and as you know, the WNBA was not in existence. I think the ABL started right after, a year or two after that. So, going overseas was just not an option for me. And my transition was really to go right into coaching. I started coaching as a graduate assistant coach at Long Island University in 1996, right after I graduated Georgetown in 95. And I've been coaching for 23 years since that date. I stopped coaching women's basketball last year. For me, coaching was more of a way to stay connected to the game after I graduated. It's really hard after basketball has been a part of your life for so long, part of your DNA, for it to stop right after you graduate. So, you tend to find something that keeps you connected to the game, keeps you connected to, being a mentor to young student athletes. And when I started, I was a graduate assistant coach, getting my graduate degree, and also coaching. And, I just love the mentorship that I had with the young women that I was coaching. I love being a player's coach. I love inspiring them and really motivating them to be better people, both on and off the basketball court. And it's something that just stayed with me because it was something that was just so important in making me who I am today. And I felt like I needed to be that role model for young women in the game by using the game of basketball.
Yeah, I definitely can agree because I like the one thing I always point out in our group chat and everything is the environment can definitely change and have aspects on people. Like when you take people away from home, or if they're too close to home, or there's a whole bunch of factors that can definitely have effect on someone's career outside the court. That like there's so many like stuff that they have to deal with outside of basketball in their daily lives that not only just players have to deal with that, but also on top of that coaches have to deal with, because when you bring them into your program, you're like kind of like you kind of adopting them as like a child almost, and you definitely deal with a lot of their day-to-day life.
Yep, that's true.
So the one thing I really thought about was at what age did you notice your talent for the game? Like at what age? Because or I might be wrong, but I feel like sometimes whenever you reach like a player of you both your accolades, I feel like after a certain point of you playing like high school or AAU or like middle school basketball, at one point I feel like at one point you start to like kind of like distance yourself from like a lot of kids your age, like skill wise, or either maturity wise in the game. And I feel so. What age do you think you start noticing your talent started to rise? Or
Yeah, I think our it's funny because our stories is different. I I went to Manchester Elementary School in right in Pittsburgh, and we had our gym teacher there. His name was Bob Manfredo. He was the gym teacher there, and he was also the basketball coach. So what he would do is, when you were in the third grade, you can only play basketball for the team on the fourth and fifth grade. So when you were in the third grade, he had what you call the dribbling club, which you used to go to school, go after school, go in the gym, and you just worked on 100% fundamentals. No games, no nothing. You worked on dribbling. You worked on your mechanics, shooting the ball. And then that was just getting you ready. That was the feeder right into you going into the fourth grade for your first year being eligible to play for the team. So in the third grade, so I was 8 years old. I was in the dribbling club, and I was doing that every single day after school. And even after that, my dad would come home from work and he'd rebound for me, and we'll go to the park and do some things. And I think for me, at the age of 8 is when I really knew that basketball was something that I wanted to do. And I just worked on it every single day from that point forward, which got me to where I was at now. So, I mean, as a player. And I think my wife, her story is totally different.
Yeah, I was a big bloomer. I started playing basketball in the 7th grade, and as you know, like Eddie just said, kids are starting to play basketball at a young age. First grade, 2nd grade, they're in different sorts of activities to get them going. But I started in the 7th grade, which was very, very late. And prior to that, I was modeling. I was, doing all the girly stuff. I was in Girl Scouts. I had no athletic bone in my body up until that point. And it was funny because I was graduating from a Girl Scout event, and I was obviously one of the taller girls in graduating. And my troop leader's sister, who was a local basketball coach, attended the graduation, and she said, this girl is tall. She's playing basketball. And my troop leader said, no, not at all. So at the end of the graduation, she came up to me and said, hey, do you want to play basketball? And at the time, I had no idea what the game was about. All I remember was watching my dad watch the Georgetown Hoyas. Every time they played, I would have to sit there and watch the games with them. That was my first introduction to basketball, was watching the Georgetown Hoyas men's basketball team play with my dad. So when they approached me to play, I said, what the heck? I went out for the team, and being the tallest girl on the team, that was the fun part. I got to block shots. I got to play defense. And really, have a special niche with the game that really, ignited my passion, because I was just so good at that. Long story short, I ended up going to Georgetown after after that being my first introduction. Ended up going to Georgetown. But for me, playing basketball was more like an opportunity to get a great education. Obviously, I was recruited to play high school basketball and recruited to play college basketball. And both my high school and my college obviously were very, very good academic institutions. So my parents just saw that as a tool for me to get a great education. And, obviously I fell in love with the game, got better as time went on. And that was just how I started playing basketball. So for me, it was just a tool to a great education at the time.
Perfect. I actually have one more guest. Courtney, you look like you're driving for some reason.
Yeah, I'm picking up my fiance's cake. What's up, cuz? How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Hey, I just came in real quick to say I appreciate both of y'all for coming on. It's been a long time coming. I'm proud of everything you did. That's why I hit you up because I was like, I love what Ben Force is going. Y'all are growing and growing, and I see it more and more. And then I'm like,
Swear.
let's get those guys something that they can do for Loudmouth. So I just came on to say thank you. I'm picking up Kinga's cake because it's her birthday. So they
Right.
said they messed it up. So I'm dealing with that. I just called them to say thanks.
Oakmont Bakery?
Yeah. Can you see it?
No.
Nice guess,
You
I
got
assume.
vision. Oh, okay. I was about to say, how can you see our logo?
Yeah, I appreciate you having us, man. It's a pleasure.
Hey, it's all good. All right. I'll see y'all.
Have a good one, Courtney.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, and obviously the way you're explaining it, Miss Daynia, from coming into playing basketball late, going full circle, going to Georgetown, and falling in love with the game, obviously that must have some type of translation into your family. I don't want to get stuck on this too long because it'll seem like a little pushy, but obviously your son is in the NBA.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know this. I could have completely gone blind to it until Courtney said something. And it made me laugh because I had met your son whenever he was playing at FSU. I think it was 2015. They played Florida, and I ended up going to that game, and I ran into him, and it was just one of those things that I was like, well, they're players. I might as well go talk to them because I was playing at the time. So it just made me laugh that it was such a small world.
Yeah, it sure is. Basketball takes you a lot of places, and you meet a lot of great people. So it's definitely something.
Yeah, that's true.
To spread.
But to get into your guys, would you consider it a club, an organization, your business?
Business?
Just our business, yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It is Benton Force Basketball. You guys are two founders, creators, founders.
Yep.
I want to make sure I give you guys the right title. And it seems like you guys have everything. You do training, speaking engagements. It truly seems like you guys are phenomenal role models and leaders within this business, the foundation. And I understand that you guys are both well played, well talented basketball players. Whenever you have kids, young adults that come in, do you make sure from any skill level, let's say somebody comes in and they're brand new to the game, or if somebody comes in and they've been playing for a few years, do you make sure that you break it down to the very detail of the game and make sure that their fundamentals are correct first, or do you base them on where they've started?
Well, the biggest thing we try to do is we try to treat, I mean, obviously, you can tell when someone's skill set is different, when someone's skill set is higher than someone else's. But I think the fundamentals of the game are the same. I think in today's society, a lot of players, all they do is exactly that. They play. I think one thing that separates Benton Force basketball from everyone else is that we try to focus on the fundamentals of the game, the little small things that make you the player that you can possibly be and to max out your potential. I think that's what makes us different, because if people came into our gym and we just let them play, they can do that anywhere, and that doesn't make our brand valuable if they're just coming to do things with us that they can do other places. So I think one of the things that we try to utilize is our experience, because if you notice from reading on the website that we have as players and coaches, we have over 50 years combined experience in the game. So I just thought, when we first started Benton Force and we thought about the whole concept of training and things like that, we was just thinking about passing along our knowledge of the game to our clients. And I think we've 50 years of experience is a lot of time, and we've seen pretty much everything, from the good to the bad. And, we want to show our clients what not to do. And we also want to show our clients what they must be able to do to be recruited like they want to be recruited. And I think it's been good, man. We started in June, and it's been really good. Our clientele has grown tremendously over the last several months, and I think the biggest thing is that people realize is it's a quality product that they're being taught the game of basketball, and it's just different. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. Coach talked a lot about the physical part of our training, but we also bring a mental piece to it that most trainers don't know about. To be a successful college athlete, your work ethic has got to be through the roof. You got to be willing to be pushed. You got to be willing to be coached. You got to be willing to have your game broken down and sometimes humble yourself to what your coach is trying to get you to do that you may not be comfortable with. So I think not only physically do we push them, but mentally we push them as well. We really make sure they maximize their effort in the gym. We make sure that they're working hard every single drill that we do. We're on them. We're treating them like they will be treated when they get to college. And these coaches are yelling and screaming, and you got to be able to get past all of that yelling and screaming and really absorb what your coach is trying to tell you and work through it. And mentally is more important, sometimes more important than it is physically. Like I think all coaches in college think that they could train any player to be the next Michael Jordan and the next, Candace Parker. We do that as college coaches. But if you don't bring the mental part of the game, if your work ethic isn't strong, if you're not willing to get in the gym on your own when nobody's watching, if you're not a great teammate, if your attitude sucks, you're not going to make it. And I think that's where we come in as being former college coaches. We don't only focus on the physical part of training, but also the mental part. We push our clients to the max. And if you talk to any of them, they'll tell you by the time they leave that gym, they have had a full hour of what it would be like at a real college practice or even a professional practice. We've been obviously exposed to the NBA. I've worked with the Connecticut Sun and the WNBA. I know what it's like to be pushed at the professional level, and I know what it's like to be pushed at the collegiate level. So it's not just training. We're just not rebounding and passing the ball back out to you. We're actually pushing you and demanding your best for that hour that you're in the gym with us.
Love to hear that.
Isaiah, the one thing I was gonna ask was like, what goes into a typical game prep as like a coach? Like, what goes into like, because I've always wanted to know, like, whenever like you prep for a game coming up, like what typically goes into everything that you have to prepare for in order to go opponent, whether it's either high school or college or or at whatever level.
Well, one of the things when you're preparing for a college game, everybody does their preparation a little bit different. Their scouting reports and things different. I'm gonna speak on, for the most part, what we tend to do. Say, for example, and that's the one thing that I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the one thing that people don't realize. All they do is pay their money to come see the game, and they see you that night. No one knows the prep that goes into that game. So, say, for example, we got a game on a Saturday. Okay. Say we got a game on a Saturday. We'll start our prep on 3 days prior for the most part. We'll start our prep about 3 days prior. And what we'll do on the very, very first day, the scouting report is always assigned to one of the assistant coaches. And that assistant has to do all the prep work for the clips of the other team and things like that. So the very first day we start talking about the personnel, what does the team, talk about the team statistics? What do the team like to do? What they don't do as well? And then we start talking about the individual players. You go down from the starting five all the way down to, their whole rotation. And you talk about their strengths, their weaknesses. And not only are you talking about them, but as you're talking, you got this stuff clipped on film. So your players are looking at it up on the screen. And so say, for example, if I say that, this person can really shoot the three, but they struggle going left. Now I got clips showing that person doing exactly that, shooting the three, or I'm showing how, they're really good going to the rim with their right hand. But now when they go left, how they can go left, but they're not as dominant as, going with their right hand and things like that. And then once we start talking about that, then you start talking about what the team does, from an offensive standpoint. So with us, the first day we break down personnel and we break down a team's offense. That's the whole, first, and then you go on the floor and actually go over those things. Day number 2, we start talking about what a team is looking to do from a defensive standpoint. What they're looking to do against zones. If we decide to play a zone, what are they going to do versus the zone? What are they looking to do to us defensively? Do they press? Or are they a zone team? Or they're a half-court man-to-man team? Those types of things. And then I think the very last day before we play, we start talking about, we call it the kicking game. And it's a saying that if you win the kicking game, there's a good chance that you can win the game. Now, the kicking game to us is the baseline out of bounds and sideline out of bounds. And that's a total different entities. So we talk about baseline out of bounds, sideline out of bounds, and we break that stuff down. And then before you know it, day before, prior to game day, you done went over every aspect of the other team's game plan as well as your own. So we used to always tell our players, we got to know their stuff better than them. And it's true. And believe me, that's not going to guarantee you a win, but it puts you in a position. It puts you in a better position than going in there blind and not knowing anything.
Yeah.
When I coach, I kind of liken my preparation to being in my basketball class. I'll lecture you. I'll give you all the answers you're going to need for the final exam. The final exam is game day. And if you spent your time studying, the notes and studying the preparation for game day, you have a better chance of being successful. So my practice is like my classroom. It's an opportunity for me to expose my players to everything that they're going to expect. Like Coach says, player tendencies, offensive, defensive strategies, and then final exam is game day. And whoever spent the most time preparing for that final exam probably will win the basketball game. So that's why it's very important to have an academic background when you're going to college. That's why academics is important. You have to learn the game of basketball, not only what you need to do, but what your opponents do as well. So, some people learn visually. Some people learn by actually going on the court and actually going through the steps. Some people learn by just looking at it on paper. So as coaches, you have to make sure you prepare your team with all 3 different kind of visuals, whether it's watching film, looking at it on paper, and then transition it to the basketball court. So somehow, some of your players who all learn differently may absorb the game plan for the game moving forward.
Yeah, that's totally right. I was gonna say the basketball. The one thing I like to tell people, because I just started reffing last season, so I'm going into my second season of PIAA reffing. So the one thing I always like to tell people whenever I talk about basketball or anything along like that, it's the little things that can screw up the entire game, whether it's turnovers, whether it's missing passes, whether it's not taking advantage of matchups or whether it's committing basically putting yourself in the wrong situations and not allow yourself to take the best advantage of what you have to succeed. It's literally a game of the little moves can really have bigger outcomes on how the total end of the game ends up being.
Yep,
definitely.
Yep, we used to tell our players all the time, that turnover that you made in the very beginning of the game may be that same turnover that kills us on the back game. Right. So you never, that's why you got to just, you never have a perfect game, but you got to come as close to perfect as possible. When you're playing these games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for college basketball, and I guess college professional basketball too, does it work the same way as college football in terms of whenever you guys are doing your practices through the weeks, do those players get sent home with studied tape of whoever they're going to be guarding or what the offensive scheme looks like for that opposing team? Because I know in basketball you can play up to 3 or 4 games a week sometimes in terms of football where you have all week to prepare and then game day at the end of the week.
Yeah. Well, with all the technology now, like I said, we've been coaching for 22 and 23 years. I think the final 3 or 4 years of us coaching now, everything is there's no more paper scouting reports no more. Everything's on iPads now. So say, for example, the same film that we just watched as a team, the players all can hit one button on an app and see those, have those same clips or whatever they need at home. So to answer your question is yes. They can look at that stuff at home. They can look at everything that we looked at practice or prior to practice. They can look at that same exact stuff over and over until they feel comfortable with knowing exactly what their opponent's trying to do, or the player or the person that they're trying to guard is trying to do. But the one thing that we stress is, we don't want them to just know about who they're guarding. We want them to know about the tendencies of the team.
Yeah.
What is the team looking to do? What is the team trying to do against you? And I think the more that you know about the team, the easier it's going to be for us, or for you as an individual, to combat whatever they're trying to throw at you. And it's been good. The technology is crazy now, man. There's so much stuff to do, and it's unbelievable.
When I played, we had a black and white composition notebook. Of course, in the notebook. What do you guys use at Vermont?
Same thing. We had notebooks and 3-ring binders. But I know them same notebooks that she's talking about. It's extremely hard to rip the page out.
Yep. Yeah, because it wasn't even the ringed notebooks. It was the ones that were all just pressed together. Oh man. Isaiah, I know you got more questions.
Oh yeah, I definitely got some. So I was like, the one thing I was wondering was, so what would you say? If you're giving anyone like advice, like a parent, like or anything going through like the recruiting process, like whether it's like through their kid, what would you say? Because I feel like recruiting process now is getting it's getting a little bit like, I'm not gonna say out of control, but I feel like it's a lot more like social now. So now it's like everything's on the internet, between like people are reaching out to like coaches through like, Instagram, like players are having especially even all the way down to high school, they're having way more like freedom or way more control nowadays in this new era of technology and how everything's going on through the basketball. So I was just like wondering you guys' input on that.
That's another niche to our business as well. Not only are we basketball trainers, but we also consult when it comes to the recruiting process, because we've obviously been on that end for quite some time, and we know what goes on behind the scenes that a lot of parents and a lot of kids don't know. And we want parents and kids to be able to ask the right questions, because the recruiting process, like you said, is very arduous. It's very long. There's a lot that goes into it. And if you don't know the tricks of the trade, you're going to make the wrong decision and end up in the transfer portal sooner than you know it. So part of our business is to be consultants for players who want to know, what to look for in their college search when it comes to, the right academic fit, when it comes to the right personnel fit, when it comes to the right coaching style, in terms of coaching style, when it comes to playing style. There's so many different things that these recruits need to pay particular attention to. And they don't need to listen to their AAU coach, their high school coach, their best friends. They really need to sit down and really say, is this the best fit for me? Because I'm going to be the one that's there for 4 years, every single day, getting the best out of this experience, not them. So, I think sometimes kids get caught up in listening to the wrong voices and being led by the wrong people who have their own agendas at hand, and they end up making the wrong decisions for them. So as former college coaches, we want to make sure the players and their parents are paying attention to the right things. Academic fit, where do you fall in the depth chart in that program? What is the coaching style like? And what is the style of play? Does it fit your skills? All those 4 things I think are very important for players and parents to pay attention. So that's why we provide some consultation on our end through our business as well for any parent or player who wants assistance. We'll go on official visits with them. We'll talk to coaches for them just to find out how the coaches really feel about them. Sometimes players think once they receive a letter in the mail from a school, that means the school loves them and wants to recruit them and wants them on their team. That's not necessarily so. There's so much that goes into the recruiting process that you really have to take your time and go through the process and really be selfish about what you're getting out of the process. What's best for me? What's best for the type of person that I am? And do I want to be close to home? Do I want to be far away? Is academics more important than athletics? Is it playing a point guard as opposed to a 2 guard? There's so many different things that come into it, but you have to be really selfish about your goals and what you see your future college basketball role to be, and really spend time getting to know every aspect, the academic, the coaching style, the coaching style, the playing style, and also who's on that team. What kind of players are in that program? Are they good kids? Do they come from great families? Are there any problems going on? This inside information you don't get if you're not paying attention, and you don't get if you're not asking the right questions. So part of Ben Falls basketball is to make sure that we're there to help them get answers to some of those questions that they really, really need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think one part of the recruiting process too. It's funny because it's funny you just asked that question, because we had a client on Saturday who she's being recruited by a lot of schools, and they just said, "Man, we're so overwhelmed and it's stressful." And I said, "Well, it really is not." I said, because think about this. This is the way you got to look at it. Before you even get into the recruiting process, you got to write down, like she just said, what's important to you. Okay, I want to go no further than 3 hours from home. I want to major in this. I want to this and that. So I told them, I said, okay, well, you don't want to go more than 3 hours from home. So all those schools that you got that's beyond 3 hours, they're done. They're done. So that knocks off 5 schools already. I said, okay, you want to major in engineering. Okay, these schools don't have engineering. So that knocks off another 6. So now your listing went from 20 to 5 like that. You know, so I think a lot of people, the big problem that a lot of people have is they collect so many offers without even just knowing, sticking by. You got to stick with what's important to you. Because now if my family's really close and I want them to see me play and I don't want to go no further than 3 hours, well, that school in Kansas is out the picture. You know, but you still keep entertaining those schools, and now your list goes from 20 to 30. You know, and I think that the smaller you keep your list, the more thorough investigation you can do on every single school. It's like us. On the flip side, us being college coaches, the smaller our list is, the more love you can show every individual. If we recruit 30 kids, I can't show 30 kids love. I can show 10 kids love, though.
Yeah.
Now your chances of signing that recruit is a lot higher than it would be if you're recruiting by the numbers. You know what I mean? So it works on both sides of the fence. You got to know what's important to you, and then, you know, once you jot down what's important, and you got like 5 things that are very, very important to you, and they're deal breakers, then now you can narrow down a lot of your schools just from your own list alone.
And I don't know how Eddie feels about this while he was coaching, but I know for me, being a head coach, I didn't care about rankings. I don't care if you're top 5 in the country, or, you know, you rankings don't mean anything to college coaches, and the amount of offers that you have don't mean anything to us either. So I think that whole fanfare and energy that parents and kids put into knowing where their kids are ranked, and a flyer out all the schools that are recruiting you, that means nothing to us. Right. And it shouldn't mean anything to you if it's important to you. Find out what's important to you and focus on that, like Coach said. And that stuff is just, and I wish more people would tell parents and kids that. Spend less time, you know, promoting your ranking and how many schools have given you offers, and spend more time focusing on what your kid wants, what they like, and where you want to see them in the next 4 years. And that will go a long way. There'll be less people in the transfer portal and be more successful college athletes because they're happy. You know, it annoys me as a coach, a college coach, to see how much time and effort and energy that people put in rankings and a buffet of college offers that they have. You know,
it's all political nowadays. Everything with college and high school is all political.
I'm gonna tell you what's a pet peeve of mine, man. It's still to this day. And we're trainers now, and we're not even coaching anymore. But when someone gets an offer, and the first thing they do is go online and say, you know, I received an offer from so and so and so and so, and I was like, so my thing is this, and I know I'm totally off the subject right now, but this is not
that's fine.
Me as a college coach. It's my job as a recruiter to find the hidden gems out there that can help our program win. Like they fit our style of play. You know, they're good people. And now no one knows about this person. So I got a very good player that I did the groundwork on, and I found this player. Now she tweets that so-and-so's recruiting me. They just offered me. Now every team in my conference is recruiting her now.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
So there's no more hidden gems anymore.
I'm actually really glad you guys said that, because even down all the way here in Florida and through my high school career, I personally know people whose parents were so far determined to force their kids to play basketball, be the best basketball player on the team, do this, do that, do that. And it absolutely stunted that kid from doing what he wanted to do in life, because he didn't even really want to play basketball. He was a track star, and I mean a track star. He was the fastest kid at the school, and his dad forced him to play basketball. And I'm not even saying that he wasn't good at basketball. He could defend, he was quick, he could handle the ball, and he could score. But at the end of the day, he would get out of the game and be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I don't care about this. And
Mhm.
it made him such a miserable kid throughout our 4 years of high school together that I don't even know if he ended up going to college for track at all. I think he ended up just going to college to get his education and call it a day.
Yeah.
And
It builds up your ego in high school. You know, it builds up your parents' ego, it builds up your ego. And what ends up happening is you end up college as a freshman and you're humbled because you're on the bench.
you're no longer the best at that school.
You're no longer the best. You no longer have all that fanfare around you and highly recruited. Now you have to really focus on yourself. And that's why a lot of kids and parents can't handle what happens freshman year of college. Coaches breaking their game down, coaches really spending time developing their game to fit their style. And that takes time. So all those 50 offers and we're being ranked second in the country. Now you're sitting on the bench as a freshman. Your ego's too huge. Your parents' ego's too huge. And now you want to transfer. So it's really not fair.
Yeah, that brings me down to another question I have that I've always wanted to ask somebody this, and especially since we have two college coaches here that I would love to ask this question. So especially since you're from PA too, the one thing I wanted to ask was, what do you think the biggest separating factor is between PA football and basketball? Because I feel like, I don't know, just being from a guy like me who's gone Central Catholic, I've seen I know personally friends who've gone on to Division I football. I've seen recruiters in my school, almost every other week, So the one thing I was wondering was I feel like not around here specifically, I feel like football, you can be if you're a good player on a good like a team in Central or North Allegheny or seems along the area like that, I feel like getting the attention from Division I schools is not as hard, I feel like, as a good basketball player in this area to get attention from Division I schools. I feel like it's a lot harder for someone around this area in basketball to get it as it would if they went a football route and maybe another sport or something like that. So I was wondering your input on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's all about history too. I mean, you think about it all the way back to Tony Dorsett, Mike Ditka, all those people, coming. Just the history of football in Western Pennsylvania is phenomenal, and that history and that's all people remember. So from a football standpoint, I think, on a football roster, how many players are on a roster, typical roster for college?
That is true.
So it's right.
Yeah.
So your margin for error is a lot bigger in football than it would be in basketball. So think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You got a football player out there who can run, who can catch, who can jump, and who can do all that, right? But just so we got 52 players on a roster in football, and in basketball you got 12. So margin for error in that basketball is a lot different. So you got to be more particular about finding that recruit than you do in football. But as far as to answer your question, I think that just the history of football in Western Pennsylvania, that'll always be what people go back to.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for football, Western PA is one of the places that those recruiters will always, whether it's an up year, whether it's a down year, regardless, history tells you that Western PA has players. And it'll always be that way.
It's weird to me though, because obviously I haven't been up there and paid attention to Western Pennsylvania basketball, but hearing the stories from my dad, I feel like it should not necessarily be the same amount of recruiting from Western PA, but just from his time, he tells me about all these players that did so and so or are in like record books for college basketball. I feel like from high school to college, that recruiting should be a little bit closer in that gap, but obviously professionally, in terms of Western Pennsylvania, they've got Darrell Revis, they've got Dan Marino, but like, man, yeah, it's just so much. But hearing the names,
but you know what though, I think the basketball side has definitely gotten better. I think the basketball side has gotten better, and then I think it started to go like this, slowly but surely, because this generation they just don't play no more. And I think in order to maximize your potential, you like just going to practice, it's not enough. You got to play all the time. We tell our clients that in order to max out, you can't just work on your game, the times that the high school coach calls practice or when you're in the gym with us. You got to continue to play all the time. And if you think about it, even when I was younger, every court in Pittsburgh was jam-packed. Ozanam was jam-packed.
Yep.
Kennard was jam-packed. Rosenstein was jam-packed. The Jungle down in Allegheny was jam-packed. Everywhere you go, every court was filled. And if you lost, you might as well go home because 6 people got next.
Yeah.
So now, it's just the opposite. You roll around now, every court is empty. So that just goes to show you how many people not working on their craft. And that's why the talent level is slowly but surely declining. I'm 100% sure that's it. That's it.
My only, yeah, I completely agree. My only downfall that I feel like if someone had to ask me that same question, the only thing I feel like I would say is I feel like PA basketball, I feel like it has not completely has gotten to a point where it's gotten a little bit too political, like between parents, like school, like administrators, like pretty much everything. Like I feel like for some, not all schools, but I feel like a good amount of schools, I feel like a lot of how playing time, how a lot of everything works is a very political base, like throughout the school, however it's managed throughout the school, whether it's this parent does this or this parent does this, and they need their player to play. I feel like around here it hasn't really, like, for me personally, because I've seen it in my school, but I'm just speaking for myself. I feel like it's more about who the person is and not like what they bring, like as skill wise, of who's actually the better player versus what their name is, likeness or image, pretty much.
Right. I think that's everywhere too, though. I think, say for example, if you got 2 people that come in with the same exact skill set, they bring the same thing to the table. You really can't say this person is better than this person. They got the same exact skill. Now you got to do something, has to separate them. So now you start going deeper into them. Like, say for example, parents. Now this parent may have played in the NBA, and this other parent, his dad might have been, a janitor at one of the local high schools. Who's going to get the nod on that one?
Yeah.
It goes down to it comes down to that as well. So I'm agreeing with you. It's really political at a certain point, but it's also, if the skills if the talent level is like this, politics ain't gonna work but so much.
You
know what I mean? So I agree with what you're saying, though.
Yeah, that's just the one thing I'm saying, because I feel like, I don't know, just going through my experience of like the WPIAL, like knowing people, just seeing it through my firsthand, and like some of it, it's just kind of like, I feel like it started like creep away. Like I feel like the basketball my parents grew up with, like, was like you basically whoever basically is a better hustler, who's ever's gonna hustle until they basically drop to the floor. It's gonna be the person who's on the court. You know what I mean? So like I feel like around here nowadays, with like especially my generation, even the generations after me, I feel like it's got a little bit like to like, it really hasn't been like who the better player. Sometimes I feel like stuff's sometimes it's been flip and flop around here because I feel like the Whippeal for basketball perspective, I feel like personally, I'm not blaming them, but I feel like there was like somewhere between like a talent drop off where like they were going good, and then something hit, and it just like it hasn't been the same. I feel like it hasn't been the same between like players, like you guys said, how courts are empty now. People are not as hungry as they were before, and I feel like every time we get that one good basketball recruit, he either switches to football, somehow switches to football, or he somehow switches to football here, or he ends up transferring to another state. I feel like every time PA gets that or Pittsburgh gets that one person, he just either somehow stays or he ends up stays and transitions to the other sport. He somehow just leaves.
Yeah, no, it's a totally different dynamic now, man. In 2020, and and moving forward, it's totally different. Totally different the way things are. The loyalty piece is gone. Everything's like, a lot of the charter schools are taking over now. Like now, you got these charter schools who, just over the last couple years, you can think about how many charter schools that has been developed, and then now they can get anybody in. So now you got these powerhouse high school teams playing against a public school team who, the coach get the cards, they play with the cards that they're dealt, and it's like it's not even fair. So the whole dynamic of sports just changed from when we were playing.
Yeah.
It's totally different. We could talk about that for another 3 hours.
Yeah, I was just the one thing I was going to say was
Yo.
Oh, go ahead, Zay.
I was going to say the one question. This is one I just wanted to get out that I wrote down. I just want to make sure at least I just want to ask. Talk about your college career. What would you say the biggest thing you learned? Like one of the biggest things you learned over your time in college, or even in coaching too? I was maybe like two-part question between coaching and playing. What are the two things you say you learned over your time?
For me, I've learned to be an effective coach. You have to be able to coach players differently. You can't coach kids the same way across the board. People don't respond. You have, different personalities, kids that have different baggage with different upbringings, and so many different attitudes that you just can't be just a blanket coach. You really have to be able to connect to them on a personal level to get the best from them. And at the end of the day, how they play on the basketball court is going to be your legacy. That's going to be your record. I call it like a criminal. You have a record. So you have to make sure that you coach kids differently to get the best from them and out of them. And I think a lot of coaches who are successful know how to do that very well. They treat their players differently based on a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, they're fair. They're fair across the board, but you have to be able to coach kids differently. And that's one of the things that I learned, even as a player. Unfortunately, I felt in college, I did not have that experience. I didn't have a coach who understood where I was from, coming from Brooklyn, New York, what I brought to the table, how I wanted to be coached, how I like to be motivated. And I didn't, he didn't get the best out of me. And then there were other players on the team that were different from me, that were treated, So I think that's one thing you really have to pay attention to as a basketball coach, to make sure you coach players at their level and learn how to bring the best out of them, and understand it might be different for every player on the team.
I think my biggest thing is knowing your why, knowing why you're doing it. And from your why, you'll come up with your core values as a coach. And with my experience, you never sway from your core values, even if it costs you your job. If it's, if I believe in these things and this is what I do, I'm not going against what I believe in. You know what I mean? Because now you're not doing yourself. And I think that the biggest thing is, for me, is first and foremost, jotting down what's important to you. What's your core values as a coach? Whether it be, regardless of what it is, and not swaying from those core values. Living by your core values no matter what.
Yeah.
And then let the chips fall where they may.
Having integrity.
Honestly, your own core values are going to be every single one of them is going to be beneficial towards you winning games and you having a successful program. And I think so many times now what happens is this. A lot of people have at the beginning. They have their core values set, but then they sway. They get away from their core values, and now they're doing things that they really don't even believe in. And then now it's not right, because now there's one thing is this. Okay, if the other team is just better than our team and they beat us and we have a losing record that year, but at least I can say, you know what? I did what I believe in. I did what I believe in, and I did it. You know, it's different to lose, and now you're thinking to yourself, I don't even believe in this, and I'm doing this. Or right. So my word of advice is, you know, have your core values and stick with them. Stick with them and just keep plugging the try to make the best of your core values and let whatever happen.
Sure.
Hey, so I came on because I wanted to ask, like, so Becky Hammond obviously took over for Pop when he got ejected for the first time, right? So she's like the first woman NBA coach to actually coach, like be the coach for a game. Do you think you'll see more females integrated into the NBA as coaching? Because obviously for football, I feel like it's a harder aspect for a woman to coach because not a lot of women have played in the NFL. I mean, obviously there hasn't been any, but do you feel like Becky Hammond, because I think she's more than capable of running an NBA locker room because she studied under the greatest mind there is in Pop. So do you think more females will be coming to the NBA?
Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you this right now. To answer your question, yes. And the one thing you got to see, it's even happening now. If you look at the NBA now, look at how many females are on staffs. And then number two, ever since I've been in the women's game, I've been in the women's game for the last 17 years. And there's so many women that know just as much as us men about the game of basketball. There's so many. Their IQ for the game is, you know, it's through the roof. And honestly, I'm fortunate enough to live with one and be married to one. You know, she it's funny because we pick each other's brain all the time. And you know, we're different, but we're the same. You know what I mean? And there's things that she does well that I don't do as well, and there's things that I do well that she doesn't do it. So it's perfect for us. But to answer your question, I see it firsthand. So when she was a scout with the Connecticut Sun, I go to the games and I sit up in the top and I just observe and just watching. It's all female, like just doing this and doing that, and it's phenomenal to see. So to answer your question, you haven't seen nothing yet. You haven't seen nothing yet. Let her talk a little bit more about the whole thing.
I wish there were more women given that opportunity to coach at the professional level. And unfortunately, we don't get that opportunity simply because we're female. And some men don't feel like we know enough, experience enough, or deserve an opportunity to be coaches at that level. I think the few that have had that opportunity are mainly all former WNBA players, if you think about it. Some with no coaching experience, just playing experience. And I think there are a lot of coaches out there with both playing and coaching experience that could be very valuable to a professional NBA program. So I think, you know, if you're going to take a female just to have a female, that's wrong. You know, and obviously, if you're going to take a female, take a qualified female coach, you know, that has a coaching experience and playing experience. And I think there are too many of those out there that are not getting the nod and the opportunity to coach at that level. I'm trying to get to that level, to be honest with you, you know, and because I don't have that WNBA playing experience, I can't get into that group. I can't get into that fraternity, that sorority, because I don't carry that WNBA tag, but I do have coaching experience.
And that's the one thing. And that's the one thing that she has. Think about this: those coaches that made it, you know, they've had 8 to 10 years worth of WNBA experience, but she has over 23 years of just coaching experience. You know,
into that league,
right? So think about it, and she played at the highest level.
Yeah.
So you got the best of both worlds, and I think like she said, there's a lot of female coaches out there that not only played at a high level, but also coached college basketball at a high level, and they're still not getting the nod. It's the same way on the men's side. think about like you got someone like that me, for example, and believe me, I don't want to coach in the NBA, but you got some people that who've been coaching college basketball for, they've been top assistants for the last 15, 20 years. And then you got somebody who just retired from the NBA, has never coached. Now they got the top assistant spot at UConn.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying to yourself, like, this don't even make sense.
Yeah.
And it's not about what you know anymore. It's not. It's who you know.
Hey, cuz, I tell people, all you got to do is look up LaRoche College women's basketball team, and that's enough tape that they need to see, cuz. With you with the big suits. Hey, I'd be like, look, you want to see what Cousin Ed look like? Go look at LaRoche College, not university, LaRoche College, big suit, pinstripe, Coach Eddie. I'm telling you, the best team you can find, them girls is lethal, boy.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because especially about the girls game, especially
hey, Isaiah, hold on one second.
right?
Hey, Courtney, guess what? You want to be weak right now.
What's up, guys?
I hope you're not driving because you're about to crash. Listen. It's funny. My wife and I went to an event probably about a month ago, right?
Yeah.
So, you know how now all these guys now, and I got some, now your suits are so tight.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
listen. So now I went into my closet because you know how things go full circle. The big suit
Right.
will come back again. So I'm not getting rid of my big suit. so I just looked out one window and I held up one of the suits that they're wearing now, and I held up one of my big suits. I said, man, I can't believe I used to wear this.
Look, when I think of big suits, I be like, Coach Eddie had the Steve Harvey big dog suit.
No.
He could have put 2 players in it.
When you walk, your pants legs be like this.
Hey.
So
That was the stuff though. When Steve Harvey first came out wearing those suits, man, everybody had them baggy things.
Right.
Courtney, was he looking like LeBron James on draft day? You talking
Yeah.
about?
Oh my God. I'm telling you, like, but I just appreciate this conversation, man. Like what y'all two said about coaching, because obviously I'm coaching football now, and when I had my interview at the school, and the first thing they ask you is like, well, what's important to you? Like, what are you going to bring? And the first thing, like you said, your values. For me, it's like the first thing is family. You know what I mean? Especially being an offensive line coach, like it's all about family. And then like second is technique. And then third is how hard you want to work. You know what I mean? Like you can control all 3 of those things. But to hear y'all talk about at the highest level, like never lose your core values is so important to me, because I'm not coaching at the school I liked last year because of my values. You know what I mean? So it's just good to talk to y'all and hear y'all say that. But yeah, big suit Eddie, man, that was a trip, boy. You don't want none of big suit.
Well, that brings me into one of my questions. I was going to say, so what advice would you have for someone wanting to get into becoming a coach or a skills trainer?
Well, the biggest thing is, man, you got to have passion for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. If you're just doing it just to do it, it's not going to work. I think my wife and I, we both have passion for the game. You think about it, man, this is all I've ever done. Mm-hmm. I've never had a regular basketball has always been a part of my life, honestly, and you have a true passion for coaching. You gotta, and that's the only way that you can get up and go train every single day, and still be excited about it. You got to have passion for it, but that goes for anything. If you don't have passion, like if you guys for your radio show, if you don't have passion for it, then it's going to be like a job, right?
Right.
You guys and you got, you're interviewing people, you have a passion for it. So the interview is like right now we're talking and I'm looking at the counter and we've been on there for an hour. It seemed like we just got on 15 minutes ago, but it's been enough, you know what I mean? But we have passion for what we're doing. We have passion for what we're talking about. So it makes it easy, Right. I just, advice would be just you got to have passion for what you're doing. And I think one of the biggest things, my last thing before I let Daynia talk is, all you can do is your best. No matter what you do, all you can do is your best, and that's it. whether you win, lose, or draw. If I did my best, I'm good with it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I would add
Mhm.
to know the game. Know your craft, educate
True.
yourself, and don't stop. Don't feel like you know it all. Even at the college level and professional level, we're constantly watching other people's games and stealing an out of bounds play here and stealing a set. We're watching the Clippers play last night, and they're in transition, secondary transition, and Eddie and I are like, okay, double drag, pin down on the right side. Like, we're constantly watching the game and increasing our basketball IQ. Read books, watch film, study the game. Don't ever feel like you know it all, because there are going to be moments where somebody's going to know more than you, and you don't want it to be the coach on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Because I've always looked into that type of stuff, right? Like the basketball skills training. Because between like when I looked into your program and then like people like Chris Brickley and then other people like along the lines of different type of skills trainers. Because I've always thought about it's always the craft about like breaking down a little bit of moments, the little things you have to do in order to perfect the game at the end of it. Because you look at like because it's funny because you look whenever you go through all the skills training videos, they could be doing a million and one things. It could be like it could be related to the sport of basketball. It could be like picking up a basketball. It could be not even looking even in the basketball court at all. Like then you could be doing something that could be like working towards your craft or a different skill that helps you sharpen your game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we require that from our players. So why not require that from ourselves as coaches?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any more questions, Damien, at all?
I was thinking of one just now. Now that we've mentioned so much about how IQ kicks into, obviously it's a very mental game, and there's moments in the game where you just gotta have to know what you're doing, know what the other person's doing, and know what you're going to do. And I'll always say this, and I'll probably die on this hill. I don't know if everybody agrees with me, but whenever I was coming up through middle school and learning the game of basketball, my dad and who was going to be my high school coach at the time, and then ended up being my high school coach, all three of us, well, both of them, I guess, had told me not to idolize the NBA and to make sure that you paid attention a lot to the WNBA and women's college basketball. And I love the fact that we had brought this up, that their IQ of the game is bar none,
Yes.
because if you idolize the NBA players, you quickly tend to forget what the game of basketball is actually about, because
Mhm.
they can rely on their
Athletic
freakish
talent.
athleticism
Yeah.
like Russell Westbrook does sometimes. Obviously, he's a pretty darn good ball player, but there's certain times in his game where he's just like, okay, I can jump higher than anybody, so I'm gonna just do it.
It's funny to say that because I think the women's game is a lot more fundamental. It's a lot more set driven, and coaches really have control over what happens on the floor because everything is about the sets that they're running. If you watch the NBA, they'll start running a set, but then there'll be an ISO on one side, and Kawhi will go 1-on-1 or PG will go 1-on-1.
Yeah, everyone spreads the court out.
They play more above the rim. Men play more above the rim. They're more athletic. They rely more on their one-on-one skill to score, whereas women rely more on their basketball IQ and the sets, the position that you put them in to be effective. That's the difference between the men's game and the women's game.
Yeah, totally. So one thing I like to say since I've been starting reffing a lot of girls basketball through diocesan, a little bit of Whitfield when I just started last year and even started this season, starting tonight. But yeah, that's the one thing I noticed. I told one of my buddies, I said the one biggest thing about girls basketball difference is boys is they play at a different type of tempo. Because even like I noticed it in like grade school, like diocesan basketball was so the one play the girl had the ball and she wanted to pass it to her friend in the corner. She was wide open. She had it. I'm watching this the entire time. I'm like, this girl has the pass. Like if she gets it right now, she can. So the girl releases the ball, trying to pass it. The other girls, as soon as that, they look at the ball. They see the ball in the air. I saw like a fifth grade girl literally ball hockey like a defensive back in the NFL. Catch it out the air, dribble one bounce, and take off full speed the whole other direction for the layup, because I'm like, it's just like, I feel like in women's basketball, there's definitely a intellect of speed. Like they don't let like the funniest thing was they don't let you like set everything up. Like I feel like they pressure you, they force you into making quick decisions because like they basically are gonna make you rely on your instincts. They're not gonna let you rely on athletic, more not rely on less athletic skill and more of like your instincts of what drives you to play the game more, I think.
Yeah, no, now you're right. It's
You've
you know,
coached
just I
both.
want to say with me coaching both, it's funny because with men or you know coaching college basketball, a lot of the guys that I coach, they all think they have all the answers, you know, and you deal with a lot of egos on the men's side, and with on the women's side, they know they're not as athletic or they're not as fast for the most part as men, so they know they need more togetherness to make this thing work. Which now they're more willing to play together. They're more willing to listen to, you know, what they're being told to do to be successful, and it all comes together. And as you watch games, and you'll see, you know, on the women's side, you know, it's more togetherness out there. You see, you know, 3 or 4 passes before a quality shot, whereas in the game they see, you know, I see I can take this guy, then I'm gonna take I can break the play off at any time and take him. You know what I mean? And it's you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it, I think, but it's just, you know, as a coach, it's funner to watch the you know the women's togetherness more so. As a fan, you want to see the dunks, you want to see, you know,
Yeah.
all the excitement plays.
Rim, you know, but as a college basketball coach watching the game as a fan, you know, you like to see, you know, to get to togetherness. You like to
like as a student of the
run the
game.
offense, right? Right.
And I think those intangibles are the blueprint of a championship team. You know, teamwork, chemistry, you know, communication, like those little things that people don't really stress when it's all about one-on-one and skill and athleticism and talent. Those are the things that aren't enough at the end of the day, you know. And I think that's why women, I think, have a different mindset when it comes to the game. It's more chemistry, it's more family oriented, it's more teamwork, it's more coachability, it's just different things that kind of gel the not so talented player to the talented player to make a championship team.
100%.
Yeah. Like I was gonna say, because that brings us like a great point. Like players, like for example, like Sabrina Ionescu, for example, like players like her, you know, Brianna Stewart, like all like the different what girls that have gone through like college, women's college basketball, even on to like the WNBA, like Candace Parker, all those type of players. But the one thing you notice is that, and like whenever you see them play in college, it's just like I don't know. I feel like whenever you see, like, for example, whenever you call it like 50 something and and never, like, you know, didn't lose like a game for like 3 seasons or whatever, however long that was. The one thing you saw was whenever Emma would do is like you would just see like dominance. Like it's literally like a team dominance. Like whenever they went on runs, like the thing that like crazy me, I told my another one of my buddies about between like the difference girls and women's basketball. I mean, girls and men's basketball is I feel like when women like in the girls basketball, if they click together as a team, they can literally dominate somebody, like dominate, like could put up like 40, like you know, could go from like they could go from like they could go from being up like 5 to being up by 40 in literally like a couple minutes, and it's more of like I feel like whenever the guys and stuff starts falling apart, it's usually individual players that try to do stuff that become bigger than the team versus whenever girls it just might be not be the team working together to, you know, work their individual, you know, team goal or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's I mean, you see it all the time. You see it all the time watching both. And I think the men too, the men know there's so much pressure on them as far as getting to the NBA and things like that. You know, that's why you look at it from a recruiting standpoint. All the guys at the end of the day, they want to go up to the highest level because they know once they go to the highest level on the men's side, that you know, you do well there, you know, it's a great chance you're going to the league. Period. Whereas men, like, because my last spot, I coached in the Ivy League. Now, I don't know this, but on the women's side, in the Ivy League, it's the 8th best conference in the country. out of 32. So no one would guess that, but think about it. Those females there's some players in that league who could have went anywhere. There's like a handful of players in that league that could have played, that got recruited by the biggest schools in the country. But if it might have been family, it obviously was the academic piece, but that's what's more important. So now it carries over to the basketball court. What do I need to do? All I want to do is what I need to do to help this team win, more so than a guy being in there saying, I got to make it to the league. What I mean? That changes the aspect of how you're going to play. And I think that has a lot to do with the women being more fundamental, the women playing more together. And and it's just different.
Yeah. Any last ones, Isaiah?
I think that wraps up most of all of my questions I have. What's it called? Everything I had was either answered or
any last
talk
special shout out from either of you guys?
I think we just would like for you guys to share our social media information and our contact information for anybody who wants to get trained by us and involved in our program. We've switched our passion from coaching to training because we think that that's where our expertise is really needed. So we train kids who are prepared for the next level, whether it's elementary school going into high school going into college, or even college going to professional level, or even increasing your opportunity at the professional level. We want to, use our passion and use our IQ and use our experience to help players get to that next level. So you could help, share our information. That would be great.
Of course, yeah. I just sent the link to your guys' Twitter account in the comments. I'll even send the website.
Yeah, excellent.
So we appreciate you guys having you guys on. It was definitely an honor and a privilege of interviewing, two individuals of your caliber, whether it's on the coaching side, the playing side, or even both. Honestly, at this point, we're definitely honored and appreciate you guys' time and everything like that.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for having us, man.
Of course, thank you guys.
Okay.
Everyone have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.